45. Brown, 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, American Football Australia head office. Wade, he loves us out there, NFL Australia and the ABC studios. We have a special guest joining us from the studios, I'm presuming. I'm going to throw it out there. Joining me and at Tim Cardy, ADSAU, mate. How are you, mate? But don't worry about that. We have got Charlie Pickering, our Bills Mafia man, joining us from the ABC studios. How are you, mate?
Very well. Thank you for having me again. Yeah, this is my sad little office at the ABC studios. I feel like it looks shittier every time I come.
And what the people don't know and what they can't see is it's a massive corner office. You've got big windows out there just out of frame. That it's a big corner glass as far as you can see. Big views of the city. So you're a high flyer, Charlie.
It's important that everyone knows that their taxpayer dollars are being put to good use. I promise.
Exactly right.
I think I ask you every time. You're in Sydney, yeah?
No, I'm in Melbourne. Melbourne.
Good. I was going to say, you got views of the harbour, but you obviously don't.
No. I've got views of a 4-story car park, to be honest.
Yeah, it's in South Bank, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
One of the best car parks you've ever seen.
That's right.
Absolutely stunning. Very Melbourne car park.
So Melbourne chic.
Now, you're joining us because Daniel has taken another round of Daniel leave.
I don't know how he's not dipping into the negative here. How has he still got so much Daniel leave left?
He is in the negative, but he goes down the path of it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm a big believer in that philosophy. I really am.
He does it well. Like I said off the top, American Football Australia, they are big supporters of us. Wade absolutely loves us. And we had to give this bit of a shout out. They've got a tour coming up, and you can get on it, Charlie. I don't know if you're planning on heading over to the States anytime soon, but you can get on this NFL/college tour. I've got it up on the screen for those who are watching us on the YouTube. It is a 3-week tour, 2.5-week tour. I think you get to 5 or 6 different games between college and the NFL. There's also, once the NBA comes out, there's a chance you can go to an NBA game. But make sure you hit up Wade from the American Football Australia, all their socials. You can find this tour. It's going to be elite. Cards, I hope you know that I'm going to be trying to go to this tour. So you might be heading the ship while I'm away, mate.
You're going to need to get in early and book some Daniel leave on the home front. So good luck with that one. But awesome opportunity for any guys that are thinking about going down the college pathway. We talked about it a bit. We've talked about, obviously, a lot of Aussie expats over there doing the college thing at the moment. So something like this to get a bit of a preview, go visit some colleges, live the life for a little bit. What an awesome opportunity. So, yeah definitely look into it.
And you go into Alabama and then you go into Texas, 2 of the biggest colleges there is over there. So definitely, if you're thinking about it, get around him, get around this tour. It's going to be absolutely huge. But the real reason we're here is our number 6 preview of the AFC. And going through it, it's the AFC Beast again. This is an absolute enormous, probably 3-way race. Let's not lie about it too early. It's an incredible. I was doing the picks earlier this morning, and I was really starting to struggle home and away, things like that, which we'll get into a bit later. But that's why we have you, Charlie, our Bills Mafia man. We'll get straight into how they went last year. We'll get your comments on the last game. But before we get there, the Bills, your Bills did finish on top just. I believe it was percentage in the end. They finished with 11-6. Dolphins 11-6. Jets and Aaron Rodgers Jets finished 7-10, and the Patriots 4-13 with all their struggles. In the playoffs, first week, the wild card week, the Dolphins lost to the Chiefs, and the Bills, your Bills beat the Steelers. Moving on to the divisional round, your Bills lost once again to the Chiefs. Charlie, I'm going to start it off straight away. What do your Bills need to do to beat these bloody Chiefs?
I mean, look, it's the Chiefs, and it's Patrick Mahomes, and you don't get to change the historical era in which you live, but at any other time, Josh Allen is probably the best quarterback in the NFL, and he's probably been to the Super Bowl a couple of times by now. But we got to beat Mahomes, and he did it again on the last play of the damn game. But I would say also with that game, we were close to flawless, which you have to be if you're going to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. And we were, I think, 2 healthy linebackers away from stopping them. It was 3 points. It was a missed field goal. And I just think there was so many injuries. We also, at corner, Rasul Douglas was injured. We were just missing key defensive players, and they were just able to gash us in a big way. So I guess that's it. And we've already got a few injuries on defense from preseason, but we've also, you have a look at what Brandon Beane's done. He's recruited, you can tell he bases a lot of decisions each year on what the Chiefs do to us in the last game of the season. And so he's gone for some more depth at linebacker, which is good. And also a few other, rookies that probably weren't expected to be contesting for a spot on the roster are. And it's actually really exciting that, that's the predicament that the Bills have, a lot of good teams with good quarterbacks. You get that point where your quarterback's pretty expensive, your key players are starting to get expensive.
Only getting more expensive.
Yeah, and you've got to find value. And it's funny, I think that's something that has definitely happened, in this offseason, which is very positive. So I would say that. I don't think it's the offense's problem. I don't think it's a Josh Allen problem getting over the Chiefs. I think it's a defense getting a stop. And, we, back in the day, we traded and got Von Miller so that we could stop the Chiefs. And then his injury kind of meant that he wasn't the guy that we needed to do that. So maybe we've got the defense to do it this time around.
And a kicker to kick a 30-yard field goal to send it to overtime.
Olabas is the most analysed kicker in preseason. It's unbelievable. Everyone has very firm views looking at every single practice, how many kicks he's missing from what distances. It's not great, but we've paid him a lot of money, so we're stuck with him.
He's got a kick in Buffalo, though. So, besides maybe Cincinnati that I can think of off the top of my head, one of the hardest places to kick a ball.
Yes.
So,
but he knew that when he took the job.
He'd be really good, though, because he has to kick in this weather all the time.
But that's the problem. You get him under a dome and he's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. Nothing's going on. Look, he has been a great kicker. He just missed some crucial kicks last season. The season before, he continuously had the game on his shoulders over and over again and nailed the kick. So, it's psychological kicking, and hopefully he's, gotten that out of his system. I mean, God, I hope so. But hopefully it shouldn't come down to a field goal every game. It should be better than that.
It was the most pressurized kick that he had probably all season, but he did. He shit the bed.
Absolutely.
Shit the bed. But it seems like you say that everyone's kicking well this season. A little bit off topic, but it seems like he's the only kicker that hasn't kicked a 60-yard field goal in the preseason. Everyone is absolutely bombing it this year, so it'll be interesting to see if he's upped his game.
Was Tucker is it Tucker the kicker for the Ravens? Kicked something like a kick that would have almost been 80 yards if you'd measured it out.
I think Aubrey for the Cowboys kicked officially 66 yards, but it hit the net. So, huge.
Wild.
As far as this division, you guys have been on top for quite some time, 3 or 4 years in a row. Before that, it was the New England Patriots for about a century. I
hear they used to be quite a team.
They did. Before going, 4 games in 4 years or something like that. It's still your division to lose. I know you've had your issues, especially on defense, and we're going to get into the wide receiver core in a second. But it is yours. It's still Josh Allen's division, and it's going to be yours until he says so, I think, otherwise. But that's going to lead us into this off-season story, Carts. We're going to start with you. And then, Charlie, obviously it's your team. We're going to start with the wide receiver core that the Bills have now got through losing and things like that with other players. How are they going to go with... You gave me a stat just before we come on. Do you want to really tell us that stat again, mate?
Yeah, and obviously we'll let you run with this, Charlie. This is your baby, but you've obviously lost Diggs and Gibbs. start again. Diggs and Davis in the off season, and so that kind of
we've
leaves
forgotten
with,
their names too, mate.
Yeah.
We've forgotten them now. We've moved on to
whoever they are. But it leaves you with Shakir as being the only one that's caught a pass from Josh Allen in a game. So obviously we can see the shopping list over your shoulder in the background there. The three staples that everyone needs: bit of bread, bit of milk, and some wide receivers. What's your feelings heading into the season about this new wide receiver core?
Well, I think the first step is getting rid of Diggs is one of those things that had to happen. And I also would say I think the way that is portrayed as a loss to the team, I think, is really overblown. There's an argument to be made. It's an addition by subtraction that the nature of the dynamic between Josh Allen and Diggs was a lot of the interceptions that Allen was throwing. He's trying to force the ball to Diggs on big plays. And there's a perception that it's Diggs demanding it and saying he's not getting enough attention. But if you look at the run home last year, which was an incredible run of wins home when everyone had written them off and they ended up taking the division, the final 7 games, Kincaid got the most targets, most yards. And then if you look at the final 6 games, it's Shakir. And Shakir has an incredibly safe pair of hands. And you look, that Chiefs game again, Diggs dropped a massive bomb down the sideline that would have really changed the complexion of that game altogether. And so I would say that Diggs in the playoffs, like late in the season and the playoffs, hasn't delivered for the Bills the way that he should have. Now, you could argue he's, they have to double team him. He's a distraction. They'll shut him down. It frees up other players. But still, the production wasn't there the way a proper wide receiver one should be. So I'm not that devastated that he is gone. I would like just one more piece in that room with Curtis Samuel's out with turf toe at this stage. He's a chance to be back for week 1, but turf toes can be just annoying, lingering, shitty injuries.
Yeah.
And it's bad because he had a great preseason and was such a perfect piece for what the Bills want to do. And I think there's a philosophy, and I agree with it, with the Bills. Josh Allen, I have firm views that he's the second best quarterback in the league. He's not, though, the most accurate pocket passing quarterback. What they've gone for is bigger, stronger receivers with really good hands. Or everyone in that receiver room has a great drop percentage. And Shakir, stands out with that. And so I'd say Keon Coleman is very promising, but I would say he's not going to get ramped up until halfway through the season. He could be good, but he's got he's not like he's not like any of those, the top 5 wide receivers that were off the board that were just ready to go and are going to change their teams already. He's going to take a bit of time to develop, but I think he's better than people think. But I still think we're a tiny bit thin. Kincaid, the offense is going to go through Kincaid. The way that he played in the stretch last year was exactly what we wanted from him. And he's a deep threat. He can actually, the Bills drafted him to be our Travis Kelce, and he's not quite that big yet. His routes aren't quite as mysterious yet as Travis Kelce, who's, the best tight end of all time. But he actually can stretch the field and break coverage really well. He can go deeper than you expect a tight end to be able to do. So I think they've built the right receiver core for Josh Allen. I just like one more target there because you have a look. MVS got injured with a neck injury, and now turf toe with Curtis Samuel, starting to get a bit nervous. With just like 1 or 2 more pieces there to choose from. Although there is a guy, Tyrell Shavers, who was on the practice squad for the Bills last year, and he's kind of one of the stories that people like, and Sean McDermott talks him up, Brandon Beane talks him up, but he stayed in Buffalo since the end of last season and didn't stop training. And he has trained really hard. And in through camp and all of the preseason, he's been a really reliable target. Trained with the thirds, then the seconds, then the firsts, and he's catching everything. But also, you watch him against the Steelers on the weekend, and his run blocking is really good. He was flattening DBs to make space for Ray Davis coming through. And he's one of those guys that works really hard. So he's not a superstar, but he is someone that they'll be able to rely on, and he's big. But we'll see. I still feel we're just a tiny bit short. I'm surprised that there hasn't been at least one little move along the way. Although that said, I really wanted them to trade for DeAndre Hopkins. He's injured.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown, I wanted them to get. I think he's injured. So,
CD Lamb might be gettable. You never know.
Yeah, CD. I'm not sure we've got the cash for CD Lamb, but maybe you could do a deal. I don't know.
Jerry might push him out of the building, though.
Yeah.
I reckon we could let you go and you talk for an hour, which is amazing.
I'm sorry if I'm going on too long, but yeah.
One thing I want to know is you lost Diggs and Davis, but you also lost, so 6 of the 18 captains have departed this year. Would it be fair to say, in your eyes, that Davis is possibly a bigger loss than Diggs?
I think it's possible. He was very well liked, and he was a great. He was a great blocker. Like he did all of the hard work that doesn't get attention. However, terrible drop percentage. The number of times where, yes, he would make plays when you need them, but he would also not make plays when you really needed them. And he had technique issues in the way that he caught that were never going to get resolved. He worked really hard at it. I do think that our off-season was the necessary off-season that you have. I do think we'll win the division. I think we're in contention. But I think 2025 is the year when you'll see this off-season pay off. And we needed to reset a lot of the attitude. We've lost a bunch of captains, but I think the Bills were hanging on to, beloved future Hall of Famers or all-pro players for too long. And I think we needed to get younger, hungrier, more durable also talent in there. We had injuries affect us too much because we had an aging roster. So this year might be a bit bumpy, and it'll definitely be a bumpy start to the system with all these new start to the year with all the new receivers. But I think it's very well set up for next year with a heap of draft capital and some space. We're under the cap for next year, and we haven't been under the cap
ever.
Ever really.
So I'll just write that down. Gabe Davis sucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I want to get your opinion on the other 3 teams, probably the other 2 teams in this division. But Cass, we'll start with you. Can Aaron Rodgers return to any type of form pre-Achilles injury to help the Jets this season?
Yeah, well, he's Aaron Rodgers, so he's got the runs on the board, that sort of thing. So you can't count him out. He just came out just in the last day or two and talked about how this training camp has been one of the hardest of his career, and he's like, I kind of like it. So apparently Rob Salah, because Rob Salah's coming into his 4th season. He's got a record of 18-33. The Jets have got the longest playoff drought currently in the NFL. So there's a high pressure, big New York market. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that job. So he's under the pump this year, Coach Salah. So he's come in apparently with this real business-like approach to training camp. And I think he's saying they've had 300 more reps than sort of what they had at the similar point last year. So I think that that plays into the favor of they're not really worried about Rodgers' Achilles. They're happy to put him under that extra load, get the reps in, and that sort of thing. They brought in Mike Williams, wide receiver, to be the second wide receiver behind Wilson to sort of help him out. He's coming off an ACL week 3 last year, so there's that little bit of an injury cloud. He probably won't return to that sort of production level he had. I think it was 21. He had probably one of his best years at the Chargers. So You're probably not going to get that sort of production from him, but he's that bigger sort of receiver that they had Lazard in that role, our boy, Alan Lazard in that role last year, but he just didn't quite, get to that level, being that big sort of dominant receiver. So they're kind of hoping, that Mike Williams will probably jump into that sort of role this year. But the biggest thing I think they've sort of done to help Aaron is last year they let through 64 sacks, the Jets, as a team. So they brought in 3 guys on the O-line, left tackle Tyron Smith, left guard John Simpson, and right guard or right tackle Morgan Moses. So they're really shoring up that O-line, give Rodgers the best possible protection that they can, because they were quite sound on defense last year. They got a couple of those younger guys.
Really, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Zach Wilson and the offense weren't exactly
Lighting
you
up.
know, weren't exactly that exciting to watch. So shoring up that O-line, and I remember talking about them last year in the preseason. We're all kind of joking they've brought in Rodgers, so it's Super Bowl or bust, and it's not that similar hype and that sort of pressure, but they're kind of in that same position of it's like, if we don't go now, when? So a lot of pressure. They brought in those three guys on the O-line to give A-Rod the best chance they can. But questions will be around Mike Williams and if he can stay healthy or not.
You say it's not that kind of pressure or that hype. I reckon it is just as pressurised, but it's just a lot quieter.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's still there, but it hasn't been as noisy.
The hype's not there, but
like when they had Hard Knocks and all that sort of all rolls into it.
But also, I mean, if you go back and watch the attitude in that team on Hard Knocks, and then it was just that first drive of the entire season, and all of that positivity was there. Was literally like the soul of that team was gone straight away.
That's the oxygen out of it all.
The first of those 64 sacks was the worst one.
But I've got a big question mark over Rodgers, which is if he was playing at his best, leading up to that injury, then I think he's a more terrifying prospect. But he was not playing good football before that. And it's Rodgers. He does have
about the 3 snaps beforehand or the year before?
The year beforehand.
Okay. 2022, and you'll remember it, Macca. He had one of his worst years at the Packers, and you wouldn't be able to forget that.
And I know that a lot of that came from like nonsense friction with the organization, which was all going on. But he still didn't deliver, and on field he didn't look like the Aaron Rodgers that he was. He looked like he'd lost a step. I'm not saying he's washed, but he looked. I'm skeptical. And at that age, coming back from that injury, there aren't a lot of examples of people at that age coming back from that injury. I think you could expect he's maybe not going to be properly back to physical health and strength and speed till later in the season. I just think there's a big question mark over whether Rodgers is all that. And my other big question mark with the Jets is less about on-field and personnel. It's off-field. Is it Hassan Reddick situation?
Yeah, it's not even sorted yet, is it?
Not even sorted. They traded for him, haven't got a deal. And I would just say, as an organization, that is a massive alarm bell for me. That's a massive red flag that you can't get that sorted. What else is there in that organization that's not working? You look at Salah's record, that's not a record that makes a year 5 a likely option.
No, it's kind of do or die.
And if the organization can't finalize a deal with a veteran that they've traded for, what else is going on there that's not working out? And I think that's, it's one of those things that for all of the hype and the optimism about Rodgers last year, there was nothing else about that team or organization that put up a fight, really, it felt, after, except the defense. Obviously, the defense is doing a good job. But the organization itself, I don't think stands up to I guess, adversity.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on to the elite team that is the Pats, from both of you, I think Rob Salah is on possibly the hottest seat in the league. Carts, what do they have to do for him to be safe next year? Where do they have to make it?
They've got to get to the playoffs.
Playoffs is all right, or is it win a playoff, or just?
Well, we've got to win a playoff game. Have to. Yeah. The hype, the time, as you said, coming into his 4th season, 5th season, not looking super likely if he doesn't. And the one thing, just quickly before I go, I will say to counter Charlie about Aaron Rodgers, he's mentally, I think he's operates on a different level, and he'll be like stacking the chips up kind of thing, it's me versus the world kind of thing. And I think he thrives on that sort of stuff, and loves to prove people wrong. So I think that will go in his favor, and he wants to come out. He wants to be the one to be a turning 41-year-old, come back from the Achilles and bring this team and almost say, look what happened when you didn't have me last year. Now you've got me back. I've got you here, kind of thing. I think he's that sort of operator.
Do you think he will heroically run onto the field for the first
With the
game
flag.
with an American flag? I'm not sure he'll have that level of hubris.
It might be
He's a big
toned
hubris
down a little
machine.
bit.
To be fair to him, I think that was September 11. I think that's why
It was the September 11 game.
To be a little bit fair.
I'm not entirely sure that makes it better.
Yeah, at least he didn't do the Achilles running onto the field. That was
my
Like
God,
he's in
could you
New York
imagine?
and he goes, look, sure, there's a lot of heroes to do with September 11, but I'm the hero here, guys.
Yeah. All right, Charlie. Before we move on, what does Coach Salah need to be safe?
I think they have to make the playoffs. I don't think necessarily win a playoff, but they can't make the playoffs and have their ass handed to them when everyone starts playing big boy football. And I think that's what it is. Like, if they make the playoffs and they lose to a good team in a close game and they play well, I think there's, and Rodgers looks like, and Rodgers is working and, as a team, they look competitive. I think that gets him there. But anything short of that, even if they make it and they fall apart, I think he's done.
Speaking of getting your ass handed to you, the rebuilding year for the Pats.
Nice.
It seems to be really a rebuilding year. They've just traded Matthew Judon, who was, we speak about it every week. He was a locker man, Carts. He was the man that keeps that team together. They only had a 1-year deal.
We need those guys.
And he said, I think I've got a few more. And they said, well, go chase it. And he did. And he signed at Atlanta the last few days. But things like that, it's a rebuilding year. But in my mind, it opens the door for an Aussie that we've had on the show, Jotham Russell, who's played a few snaps in the preseason. So could this rebuilding year be the year for him to kind of open his wings?
Well, it's exciting for Jotham. He's listed third on the depth chart. So he's definitely in the mix there. But just a quick look at the stats, defensive stats from last year. The Patriots were the worst in the division. They only had 36 sacks and 10 interceptions off their defense last year, whereas the rest of the teams are sort of up in the 50s for sacks and closer to around the 15 to 20 mark for interceptions. So as many problems as they had on the offensive side of the ball with sort of the quarterback carousel they had a little bit last year, it's the defense that really needs a lot of shoring up too. As you said, new inexperienced head coach Jared Mayo coming in, taking over from our man Bill Belichick as you cough up a lung there.
I'm back.
So obviously looking to put his stamp on things there. But he was from the school of Bill Belichick too. So how much is going to be different? Like how much is going to be his new spin on things? Like they call him Bill's son, I think, like kind of in jest.
Yeah,
But, he has come out and said he wants them to be a running team. So already just shows he doesn't really have a lot of confidence in either the wide receiving core or just what they've got at quarterback, which they've got Jacoby Brissett. He's kind of the veteran, and they drafted Drake May. So it's looking like Brissett, I think, is probably going to start, and Drake May might sit for a little bit, and then he'll definitely come in and start at some stage next year. And then it's just a matter of, like, do they bring him in to then start to try and build a bit of chemistry with Jalen Polk, he was their wide receiver they picked up in the second round at pick 5. So he was the next pick after Drake May. So you're kind of looking at like, all right, these two guys are going to be the future for the Patriots. At what point do they start to bring them in and try and build that chemistry? So yeah, as you said, it's a rebuild year. It's going to be a year of pain for Patriots fans. I can't see them winning too many games next year, man, to be honest.
It's interesting. I actually think it's kind of promising. Like, I know, like, Jared Mayo saying they want to be a run-first offense is like, it kind of says we don't trust that situation. But also, you need a good run game to take some of that pressure off a rookie when they come in. If that is working well, then you have at least a little bit of breathing room to create that chemistry. But bottom line, Drake May, people aren't talking about him the way they're talking about Caleb Williams. And there's, throughout the preseason, there's been whispers that he has had some very tough days at training. He hasn't been great. A couple of good plays, but a lot of mistakes. And it just depends if they're comfortable, if they've accepted that's what this year is, and he can go out and make the mistakes he needs to make to learn without getting booed off the field like Bailey Zappi or, how much is he going to carry the weight of the shitty quarterbacks that have come before him? Or are they going to give him the space to actually go out and do it?
That's what's such a hard thing in the NFL. It's such a high pressure and often treated as a business that you don't get that breathing space a lot of time. And like I think we've talked about it a few times, Macca, like even when we were talking about the Texans prior to last year, just giving D'Amico time to create his culture and create the team that he wants. Like you don't often get that. Like you look at who's the owner of the Panthers? Like he will fire someone at the drop of a hat. Like he wants.
Tepper.
Yeah. He wants results, and you get it. It is a business driven sport, but it would be good to see, like you said, give him a bit of time. Accept that this ain't going to be our year. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be pain, but it's for that future growth. So, yeah, off the back of like their obviously successful 2 decades, is the fan base going to be willing to sit there and let that happen? I don't know.
And also, there's no bigger culture change than taking over from Belichick. I know that he's a disciple, the son of Belichick, all of that. But as an organization, you take Belichick, he was the culture. Like that was it. He was the culture of that team. So you take that out. That's a lot of work to change. That's like coming into a cult when the leader has gone and trying to change how everyone thinks about that. That's a very, very, that's a massive challenge. That's almost as hard as anything on the field is Jared Mayo putting his stamp on that organization. That's big.
Toughest shoes to fill.
Biggest shoes, the big clown shoes he's playing.
Yeah.
I think one of the stranger quarterback battles that we're going to have is at the Patriots, I reckon. Like you said, Brissett will start, but they've also got Joe Milton that they picked up last year. And if they're going with the running type game, he comes in at a metre 96 and 110 kegs. I could see him being very much a running QB.
Big boy.
Yeah.
He's played a little bit in the preseason. Like you said, they've gone towards more the Drake May, who's the pocket passer kind of thing. But I reckon there could be a little bit of a battle between May and Big Joey Milton Carts.
And you reckon Zappy just no look in? He's there maybe for an injury to one of the throwing boys.
Possibly.
Yeah.
He did. He also, they've kind of thrown him all around in the preseason. So, yeah, it is a quarterback carousel there. But
yep.
I don't think you're drafting those two. And I don't know where he went in the draft, Milton, but he was still relatively high. You're not drafting those guys, paying them a small fortune just to get rid of him in the last.
You would almost say that he was drafted much higher than Tom Brady,
a little bit higher.
One of their previous quarterbacks at the Patriots.
Yeah.
So, I think mathematically he'll be great. If he's not the next Tom Brady, then I'll be very surprised.
That's absolutely how it works.
Yeah.
Every time.
He was actually pick 193, so he's only just
Yeah, there you go.
Just better traits. Just better traits than Brady.
Yeah, physically he's like up here.
He is. He's metre 96 and 110 kegs. I wouldn't want him running at me.
No way.
Our fourth and final team that we have to discuss, and the question I'm putting to you, Charlie, is can the Dolphins finally dethrone the Bills as the top of the table? They haven't been, I think it was 2008, their last winning division win. So they are well and truly overdue. Are they a chance this year? They should have done it last year. I'm sure Carts will go through a few stats about why they should have, but is this year their chance?
I will say that beating them in the last round last year to take the division was one of the more delicious wins in a long time. It was joyous. Look, they can, of course. I mean, they've got a terrifying set of wide receivers. They've got, they've got a head coach who's a mad scientist that just creates so much weird motion, doing so much pre-snap. And Tua, when he's on his game, his numbers are really good. At the same time, like the Bills took them apart early in the season last year. They were coming off beating Denver by 70 points and everyone was saying, can anyone stop this offense? And the Bills did just take them apart. And so I think they are beatable. It'll be a season of two halves, I reckon, for them. And I think it was last year as well. They come out, they've got every trick in the book and they're bamboozling everyone. But once everyone's got tape and you can get their timing off, they're in trouble. So I think the test for them is what have they got when their timing is off? And I'm yet to see, as good as Tua is when he's on schedule, I'm yet to see him handle really big pressure well. I think he's beatable, and he's just in the playoffs late in the season against big teams. I don't think he's got it. And I think that, the Dolphins say they love him, but they did drag out that negotiation for a while, and it wasn't necessarily like there are caveats in his big contract as well. It's not as long-term as Mahomes or Allen or whatever. I think they've got their doubts as well. I think they've got a good chance to beat the Bills, but I think they have to prove it, and I don't think they've come close to that yet.
Yeah, well, and you've actually absolutely hit the nail on the head. Like, looking at the stats from last year, they went 1-6 against playoff teams, obviously ultimately losing in the playoffs, and then 10-1 against all other teams throughout the year. So it's those big games where they're slipping. I think they had a negative 110 point differential against playoff teams. So they're just getting, like you said, busted wide open. Teams figure them out, and I think the early game of the Bills, you guys beat them like 48-20 or something like that. Like, you took them apart, and so they're leaking against those really good sides. Like, they're pretty sound, as you said, on offense. They added Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, he's not going to get in a heap of reps, just being where he's at this point of his career, but he still is a weapon on offense, having Hill and Waddle there. But it's on the defensive side of the ball too. That their pass rush last year was looking great, putting up good numbers, but then injuries crept in and they just couldn't get reps together. So if they can stay healthy, take the field together, like, they're starting to look a bit more dangerous on defense. Like, we know, like, as we said, we know what the offense can do, but they got to fix up that stuff in those big games against the good sides, because then ultimately that's how you're going to be playing come postseason. And Tua also, he's got to play better in the snow. In the cold.
Discuss the snow games.
we know he doesn't like it.
I can tell you right now, they play the Bills late in the year, and that is a loss. Then it's already
put it in straight away.
The one thing it's really funny on. Obviously, there's a lot of AFC East Twitter shit throwing that goes on, particularly between Dolphins and Bills. And when the schedule came out, and the Bills were playing Miami at home early in the season, but it's at night. And the Dolphins fans were furious because they don't get to stick us in the sun.
Yeah,
where we melt like snowmen. It's actually going to be pleasant conditions.
Be perfect.
Yeah, that might be a tougher game for them at the start of the season.
And then you host them in November, so just starting to get nice and chilly.
Yeah, I love it. But I love how we always get the Bills fans get threatened with 3-point penalties, like actually score penalties for throwing snowballs at the Dolphins when they come to town. So
snowballs is better than what you normally throw. I'll take a snowball over a builder every day of the week. Cast, that leads perfectly into our strength of schedule. Your little baby, take it away, mate.
It does. So, mate, we've got obviously the Jets coming off the worst record last year. They've got the 4th easiest schedule, according to my little graph here for the whole league. They've got a week 12 bye, which, Charlie, I'm not sure if you follow on. I've got a bit of a theory that there's a sweet spot for the bye. It's sort of in the back half of the year, gives you enough time to maybe string 4, 5, 6 games together leading into the postseason. So there's that sort of sweet window anywhere between sort of week 10 to week 14. I kind of like a bye around then. So they've got the week 12.
Nothing crazy about that theory. It's spot on.
Yeah,
absolutely spot on theory.
Thank you. I love that. So they've got week 12, so that's good for them. The Finns are coming in with the 8th easiest, so they're up in the green. They've got a week 6 bye, so super early. We don't love that. Will that come into play during the year? We'll wait and see. The Bills, your Bills, they've got the 10th hardest schedule, so starting to get down into the red, into the hard side of the schedule here. But positive note, you've got a week 12 bye, so as we said, perfect time, maybe rest a few sore bodies and then come back, have that sort of little run coming into the postseason where you start to either build momentum, start to get cherry right, work on things. So I really like that week 12 bye there. And then our unfortunate friends, the ugly 4th child of the division, the Patriots, they've got the 2nd hardest schedule of the whole league.
And
next
not just
year.
because of who they are.
No, it's because they're not playing themselves.
Yeah, so second hardest, week 14 bye. I don't think it really matters for them next year because they're not going to be figuring postseason, but week 14 bye to have a rest, lick the wounds, recoup and go again. But yeah, second hardest out of the whole league for the poor old Patriots next year.
Week 14 bye smells really Mayo could be fired kind of around that time.
Wow, yeah, it does lead into that sort of dangerous, like, all right, it's only a few weeks of a caretaker coach. Let's pull the trigger now.
And also, it's a beautiful time to really strategically plan your tanking for draft picks towards the end of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Smart.
This veteran's injured here, this person's a little bit sore, yeah.
Yeah, smart. All right, so I picked it again. I do like, Cast, that you said the Jets had the worst, so just completely disregarding the Patriots.
I totally forgot.
No, they don't really matter in this thing. So we're going to start with the Patriots. Like I said, I was going through and I reckon they were 0-8, 0-9. Like, it was really hard to find these guys a win. I end up finishing with 4-13 cards. What do the punters say with that?
You bang on. The books have got their over-unders at 4.5, so you're pretty spot on there. With the under is actually juicy at $2, so maybe take the under there.
I was being very generous with a couple it's at home, maybe they can get it, but yeah, 4-13, Charlie.
It's gonna be a tough year.
I would agree with that, and because I would say previously, Bill Belichick had at least 4 weird, schemed up games that he can just, he can just beat an opposition. Yeah. It'll come out going, I can't believe.
He'd do it with like special teams or, something like that.
That's right. Or the time they beat the Bills and they threw the ball 3 times for the whole game, like stuff like that,
I remember that game well. It was blowing an absolute gale. It was a blizzard, but yeah, he did. He also had a great record against rookie QBs, and they do play a couple of rookie QBs this year. So,
but as you're saying, they don't have Bill, so they don't have those extra
JB,
3-4 games this year. So 4. Whew.
Yeah. 4 was lucky, and yeah, they should be lucky to get the 4. $2, that sounds very juicy, I think.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was such a tough division to pick. So coming in at 3, but possibly making the playoffs at 10-7, I had the Dolphins.
Okay.
Like you said, I'd actually hate their week 6 bye even more because they started off with their first 6, 7, 8 weeks, I thought were pretty, not easy, but an easier 8 weeks. So I reckon they were almost 50-50 after that, or 500, however you want to say it, from about week 8 onwards. So having that bye right in the middle of when they're kind of getting on a roll, I reckon that possibly could throw them as well.
Well, and for the Finns as well, that from Florida, they want to be playing in the warmer weather. Earlier bye, no good for them. Get a bye late in the season when it's cold.
When it's cold. So.
Also, I think almost more than any other team, they need a bye later to re-scheme, to basically refresh
like
their
motion. Earlier, everyone starts to work
eye
from
candy.
Yeah,
because if you have it earlier, they don't have that 2 weeks to self-scout and change what they're doing later on.
Carts, what are the bookies saying about 10-7?
Mate, you nailed it again. 9.5 is the over under there.
I'm good at this. What's the overs paying though? If I've gone with 10,
$1.90.
Oh, so it's each of 2.
That's the value, yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
Oh no, sorry, overs is $1.70. I beg your pardon.
Yeah. See, they started so red hot in my eyes, and their back end, a couple of tough games again, snow games. I reckon they might even Patriots. I reckon it could be pretty cold back end of the year. I reckon they play, and just not a lot of confidence when it gets to that kind of weather. But coming in second with the week 12 bye, can't pick it because they both have it. Is the Jets at 11-6. Now, I know you were saying, Charlie, that you weren't confident in Rodgers, but they got 7-10 and had 2 paddle pop sticks for their QB last year. So I kind of just figured that their defense is still going to be a top 5 defense. Putting in even a half fit Aaron Rodgers is going to be better than what they had last year. So kind of bumped them up to that 11-6.
Yeah, they're over under sitting at 9.5 as well. So $1.50 for the overs though. Yeah. So the value's taking them on the under.
Am I fair with the paddle pop sticks, Charlie?
I think that feels about right. I do think that feels about right. I mean, between them and the Dolphins, it just kind of like I think their chances are pretty even. But like I said, I just am yet to be convinced on Rodgers.
Yeah, but
That's
that was
it.
purely like to go 7-10 with what they had compared to what they're going to have this year. You know, Lazard will have a better year with Rodgers throwing to him.
But 11-6
Wilson will be
is
better.
11-6 is
That's
a
up there.
very good record.
Yeah.
Like that's not that difference between 7-10 and 11-6 is
Yeah.
maybe bigger than you give it credit for.
It is, but yeah, I'm backing my. He's still my man. I still love him. So
You got a lot of faith in Rodgers.
I think I subscribe to what you said, Carts, too. He is very much me against the world. You say I can't do it, let me try and show you that I can. So I'm pretty confident with the overs at $1.50 there, I reckon. And only betted by your Bills with 12-5, and I almost bumped it up to 13-4 with the way you were talking them up about this year. Yeah, but I stuck with the 12-5, mate. And Carts, how's that looking?
Yeah, the bookies have actually got him at 10.5. So you're definitely you're smashing the overs there. $2.10. So you're grabbing a bit of value as well.
Very valued. Yeah. Are you happy with 12-5, mate? Probably get you. That'll be close to number one seed, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'll if I can take that now and see you in February. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you'd sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be wrapped with that. I was more 11-6 when I looked at it.
I had you with a very slow start too. I reckon you were like 4-3, kind of around that 7 weeks.
That's right, but also that's fine. Like we're at a point as a team that it doesn't matter if it's bumpy at the start of the season. It's
Which
all about,
you're expecting that, eh?
Yeah, and it's all about how you come together and do it. One thing I did forget to mention is big year from James Cook running last year. I think he was like overall 4th best running back in the league last year. New running back Ray Davis looks really good. And we've actually got good depth at running back. And I think Joe Brady, OC, will use that running game a lot early in the season, and it will give the receivers time to settle down. So that, 3-4, 4-3 start to the season might be a bit better if the run game gets happening early and the O-line is moving well. I think that could improve the outlook. But yeah, I think, look, I'll take your projection happily.
Yeah, take it on the chin. Fine, if I have to, I'll do it. Yeah. Carts, who are they actually playing this year?
Yeah, so we've got the intra-conference. So AFC South is who we're matching up with there. Inter-conference, we've got the NFC West, and then the 17th game is made up from the NFC North.
So the NFC West, so there's some big games. I think San Fran, that's where they kind of split, I reckon, because they were playing, I reckon the Bills, or what a game to start with, I reckon, is Rodgers versus Brock Purdy. Week 1, Monday night. I reckon that's an absolute cherry-ripe start. And I say it every week, I love the fact that we finish with division rivals at the end. The Bills, I think you have the Patriots to finish. So the other game, Jets versus Dolphins.
In New York.
In New York, I was about to say it, is absolutely prime time to finish the season as well. So always love that finish to the season.
It will be really interesting to see what the 49ers do to the division. Like they're trouble. Like they are just absolute trouble. And it depends when you play them. Depends. Who knows if they've got Brendan Ayuk, but it's like they can really cause some trouble.
And bad luck to the Dolphins who finished second. They get to run into the Packers, so bad luck for them. To finish off, is there any value from you two boys for the Patriots at $21?
Absolutely not. I'll keep my money. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I think the Patriots they should just have some quiet time to reflect.
Yeah, go sit in the corner.
They'll have 18 weeks of reflecting, I think. But it gets a little bit more juicy here, and it'll be interesting to see which way we go. We know which way you're going, Charlie, but Dolphins at $3.10 to take out. And like I said, I reckon it's only 2 or 3 games in it. So Cards $3.10, interesting.
Mate, just looking at it, that's probably the best value for mine. Like $3.10, it's a pretty close race between these three. And in terms of value, probably, Dolphins at $3.10 would be maybe the best little bit of value, I reckon.
Is it worth even asking you,
Oh, no, I mean, like from that point of view, I do actually think that's good That's good money. If it turns out Tua can figure out how to play in the cold, although I think he's probably still cold from that Chiefs game.
He hasn't.
I think he's
he hasn't-
still-
Didn't they take the fans? Some of them got hospitalised or something. Pneumonia.
They amputation. Like they had literally frostbite and had like fingers amputated
He might
from
have thawed out
from that
by now.
game.
That's insane.
But
No way to be.
they are, I guess, technically the outsiders at $3.10 because we got the Bills and the Jets. $2.60 for the Bills, $2.63 for the Jets currently. So as tight as it can be at that top. But as far as that, I reckon, like you said, if the Dolphins can hang on, because they actually last year, I should have mentioned it, they were 3 games clear with 4 games to go and shit the bed. So
Shit the bed.
They properly shit the bed.
So with 4 games to go, you're going $3.10. How good is this? But we know which way you're swinging, but Carts, 260, 263, either of those getting you?
I probably have less faith in the Jets. So, like, the Bills, are definitely probably more of a sure thing, I would have thought.
Doesn't it? I mean, like, at the risk of sounding old man football, their rosters are both really good. There's a chance the Jets are great this year. But doesn't it end up always coming down to coaching in the stretch at the end of the season? Like, it's how you handle those changes. And Bills haven't been to the Super Bowl yet under Sean McDermott, but he has held seasons together in some pretty trying circumstances a few times. And I'm yet to see that from the Jets, like thinking that coaching staff can pull it together.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You sound like old man football. Perfect.
It's all I wanted the line of scrimmage, guys.
We got to run the rock.
Yeah.
That's right.
Either way, if you can pick out of those 3 or you're ballsy enough to give $21 a go, it's a nice little juicy pickup if you can pick the winner. I reckon that's pretty much all we've got, boys. Charlie, again, thank you so much for coming on and playing a better role than Danny would have. So, huge
Absolute
by
pleasure.
you.
And I'm working on reducing my word count. Next time, I'll be really snappy. I promise.
It was only that little bit.
Well, it's just I don't get to talk football as often as you guys, so I just want to do it all at once. That's all.
We love it. We love it.
Can't fault that.
We only have 2 weeks to go, Carts. So we've already decided we're finishing off with Chiefs and Mahomes. So it'll be the NFC East next week. Danny will be back to talk up his birds. Make sure you check out all the socials. We've got a little competition going for those that are still listening. Make sure you check that out. Get around it. Thanks again, Charlie, and we'll see you next week, guys.
Absolute pleasure, guys.